Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Hangout. My name's Joe Grabowski. I'll be your host for today. For those who don't know, we're all about bringing science, adventure, conservation, exploration to classrooms across North America and hopefully beyond. Thrilled today to be partnering again with the Canada C3 for another hangout. If you missed it, about a week and a half ago, we had an introductory hangout with Diz and learned all about the upcoming expedition. 150 days around Canada through the Northwest Passage. It's going to be absolutely incredible. Today, we're going to go on a virtual tour of the vessel itself. So we're joined today by Scott McDougall. He's the ship team lead of the expedition. He's a devoted environmental professional and sailor, having spent his career in the environmental and expedition industries. As a sailor, he's completed a two-handed transatlantic crossing in a 30-foot sloop. He's had several sail-driven Arctic expeditions, multiple students on ice Arctic expeditions, and several voyages on the Chilean coast of Patagonia. He's been on vessels big and small around the world. So he's qualified by the Royal Yachting Association as a yacht master offshore. His favorite things about Canada are tolerance and diversity, and also maple syrup. So Scott, it's absolutely incredible to have you joining us today.
Shall I begin with a little bit of a tour?
Absolutely. It looks beautiful there today.
Oh, it's stunning. I'm in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, where this fantastic, strong vessel behind me right now, the vessel that will carry us for 150 days around the whole of the country, is here, and we're just in the final stages of making her ready. She's red and white because she's going to look like a Canadian flag by the time we finish with her. I'm just going to reverse my camera so you all can get a better, well, it's too much glare. I can't see that. Here you see her. Strong hull, a hull meant to be able to break ice. This part of the hull that you're looking at right now is designed to ride up and over so the weight of the ship can crush ice so that we can go through ice if need be. Here's one of the sailors, Danny. Danny's from the West Coast. This is the chief mate, Jim, down on bended knee, fixing some of the lines that keep the ship tight and safe at the dock. Just as we're celebrating Canada, not only has this vessel been around Canada many times, the onboard crew are from all over Canada too. You just met Danny from Victoria up there, adding some white paint to the hull is Michael. He's from Newfoundland. Our bosun, who's the senior-most sailor, is a new Canadian from Ghana. So just like you guys in your classrooms, I heard Manitoba come in, for example. I was born in Winnipeg, so Manitoba's near and dear to my heart. So this boat is international, or not international so much as national already, not just the places the sheep visit, but the places that the sailors themselves come. All of this red paint is new because we want her to remind people of Canada. Every time anybody sees her, we want them to think of Canada. And this white section you see right in front of us is soon going to have a big maple leaf right in the center. So the ship, when she's seen up close and from a distance, actually looks like the Canadian maple leaf. So let me give you a little bit of an onboard tour. This thing that I see right now is the gangway. And when we're alongside, which means tied up at the wharf, we'll go up the gangway. First of all, I have to put on my hard hat. There's so much work being done these days that we treat it like a construction site and stay safe with steel toes, glasses, and a hard hat. Here we go up the gangway. Everybody say hi, Michael. Hey, Michael. Where in Newfoundland are you from, Michael?
Bonavista Bay.
Bonavista Bay. Now, there's some things that you're going to need to know about shipboard life on this little tour I give you. There's some words that you may not be familiar with. If you all look at let's say you're looking at me right now. Let's say that's the front of the ship you're looking at. We don't call that the front of the ship. We call that the bow of the ship. So right now, I'm looking at the bow of the ship, not the front, but the bow. Now keep your eyes on me and stick out your left arms to the left. On the ship, that's not the left, that's the port side. And if you stick out your right arm instead, that's the starboard side of the ship. So we don't have left and right. We have port and starboard and bow, and at the back, we have the stern. I'm going to follow Chief Mate Jim down this companionway. Now we're on the well deck. This is where lots of our science operations will happen. For 150 days, we're going to be doing science every day. Science is just one of our missions on Canada C3, but it's an important one. And so there's going to be a whole structure built right here that will contain a lab. And up there, where Jim and Sully are working, we're going to have a crane that lifts sampling devices into the water so that we can collect samples from the bottom, and we'll collect samples of plankton from the water column itself. All sorts of operations. We'll have rubber boats called Zodiacs mounted in this space right here. And when we want to go ashore to explore a wilderness area or to get to a remote community, we'll launch those boats with this crane. And we'll get down into the water, and we'll get in the crane and get in the Zodiacs.
Hey, Scott, I'm just going to pause you for a sec. We lost your video feed.
Oh, that's the problem. Let me...
we still hear you loud and clear, but try switching the camera back and forth and see if it brings it back to us.
All right. I'm going to and I'm going to make my way up to the wheelhouse to make sure I've got power. I've got a battery problem, I think, going on right now. Can you see me now?
You're back now. Yeah.
There we are. Okay. So this is where we'll put our Zodiacs into the water. And from here, we'll go explore all sorts of different parts of this fantastic country. You know that we're starting in Toronto, in the Great Lakes, which is fresh water, and then we're going to go out the Gulf of the St. Lawrence, and we're going to get in salt water, out the Gulf of the St. Lawrence to Prince Edward Island. I'm about to go into some of the places that we'll live in, and then continue all the way around the country. Until we get to Vancouver. Now, turning into a little celebration of Canada, Canadian, all the things that in English and in French and in several First Indigenous languages. We say miigwech for thank you. We say kwe for hello. Celebrating all of the great cultural diversity that we find in Canada. Down this way, we'll get to some of our living quarters. I want you to see how be like when we're on this voyage. Here's a cabin. We'll knock. Nobody's home. Hope you can still see this. This is where this is a generous room because most of ours will have a second bunk here, a bottom bunk and a top bunk, like many of you have at home. Bottom bunk, top bunk. Finally, I'm going to take where our officers are, and finally up to the wheelhouse. The wheelhouse is where we steer this big boat from. All the way up, all the way up. Chief Engineer's cabin. Let's see if Mike's at home. There's Mike. Mike's the superintendent and chief engineer, responsible for keeping all of the machinery on the boat going, from plumbing to electricity. We actually make fresh water. We take seawater and we convert it into fresh water. That's the kind of important responsibility that Mike has. Now we'll finally go all the way up to the wheelhouse. The wheelhouse is like the brain of the operation. It's where we find the captain a lot of the time. It's where we steer the ship from. Where our radar devices are. That's Martin. Martin's here all the way from England to help us install satellite communications equipment. You're talking to the world, Martin. Yeah. Darren. Darren's looking at the chart.
How's it going?
This is the way we navigate with both traditional paper charts, parallel rules, dividers. This is Roger doing the same thing. Hi, Roger.
Hi.
But not just all this paper material, but all of this electronic, all of this contributes to our navigation, high technology. We communicate with satellites. And then this, look at this, great big ship and a little steering wheel. That's how big it is. That's all we need. Everything's controlled from right up here. And this is where the officer of the watch would sit and watch everything happen. From here, he or she can see forward. Remember what this side of the ship is called? It's not my left. It's the port side of the ship. You can see out port, and she can see out to the stern, she can. I'm going to run back down. I'm going to take us all back down to the wharf now so we can see the whole ship. I'll plug my phone back in so we don't lose the connection. And then we'll be ready to tour and some questions and answers. Coming through. Heavy into it. All the way back down the gangway. There we are. Canada C3 is not just about science. I told you about science as part of our mission. It's about celebrating engagement and cultural diversity and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples and environment and sustainability. So our science mission contributes to environment sustainability, and we'll be carrying youth, and we'll be visiting Indigenous communities, and we'll be carrying people of all kind of cultural backgrounds, not just French and English and Indigenous, but new Canadians like Sully from Ghana and maybe many of you had your original homes in other countries. But today Canada's your home, and that's part of what it is to be Canadian. So that's part of what we're celebrating on this voyage. Now, Joe, I have to confess that I had my charger with me and it's fallen out of my pocket. So while I give you this tour, I'm looking for my charger so I can plug in and not lose it. Thank you. How are we doing for time, Joe? Because I'm ready to take some questions.
All right, we can definitely meet some of our classrooms. And I want to remind the classrooms who are watching live that you can send in your questions via the YouTube chat sidebar. And I can see some groups have already introduced themselves, and we'll get to your questions that way. But let's take a trip into each one of our classrooms, and I'll introduce them, and I'll give the classroom a chance to start off with the questions. So let's see here. Our first classroom, just going to switch my screen over so I can see. There we go. So our first classroom is joining us from Kitchener, Ontario. There's a group, I believe, of grades 1s to 3, as well as a grade 7 classroom joining in with Mr. Leonard. I'm going to go ahead and turn your microphone on, and you can go ahead and ask Scott a question to get us started. I think I see someone. Here. Yep, someone's making their way up to the front.
Oh, great.
Sorry, but I see up at the mic. Can you just check and see if it was muted? I can't hear you. It's open on my end, so you should be good to go, unless it got muted on your side.
Good. Oh my God.
Gotcha.
Okay. Can you hear us?
Hey, I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. I was just wondering, how far do you travel each day, and what's the total distance, and when do you have to like refuel, and how long is it going to take? How many days?
So we'll be, because we're 50 years for the country, we've planned this voyage to be 150 days long. Our total mileage, in sailing, we talk about a nautical mile, which isn't the same as a kilometer or an imperial mile, but our 11,000 nautical mile distance is about 23,000 kilometers long. So on average, you might say we would take 23,000 and divide it by 150, but some days are going to be longer and some are going to be shorter, depending on the communities that we're visiting, depending upon whether we're dealing with ice, of course, depending upon the sea conditions. Now, every day we will be at sea on average for about 10 hours, and the balance of that time will be in a port or in a community or on the land or exploring icebergs, that kind of thing.
All right, great question from Waterloo to start us off. I'm just going to give a quick shout out to some of the groups who I know are watching live. We have a grade 5-6 class from Waterloo, Ontario. We've got a grade 3-4 class in Gananoque who are watching. And let's see, let's grab a question from one of our online groups. They're wondering if it'll be a rough voyage and where danger might be.
Well, you know, the sea is an unpredictable thing, and there will certainly be some rough days. There will be lots of calm days, but there will be some rough days. I don't think of the voyage as being full of danger exactly. This is a ship that has been in the service of Canada for many, many years. She's older than I am. She was built in 1958 and was built for the Canadian Coast Guard as an icebreaker to keep people safe, not to create danger, but to keep people safe in the high north. And in a sense, she's going back into the service of Canada for this mission too. But she's so strong and she's so seaworthy and she has so many sea miles, this ship, that we really have great trust in her. The risk, if there's any danger, doesn't really come on the ship. It'll have more to do with when we go on the land. We're in smaller boats. If the fog comes in, we have to make sure we always have a way to find our way back to the ship. So every one of our small boats will carry what's called a handheld GPS, which means global positioning system. It's a satellite system that helps us fix our location on the earth or on the water at any one time. There is some, when we're in the north, it's important that we be aware of polar bears. And so we'll always be very careful around when we're in polar bear country. We'll be careful to set up a perimeter of people watching for bears. And if we see any bear activity, we'll be careful to just quietly and gently move away. I think the real attraction for me of this voyage isn't the danger per se, but it is the challenge. It is the many, many people that we'll get to see and meet along the way, and it's the themes that we'll be celebrating every day.
All right, thank you for the online question. Keep them coming, those watching on YouTube. I can see our numbers steadily climbing. Let's meet our next class. We have a class joining us from Kitimat, grade 2 classroom. Mrs. Simbulin, just give me a moment to turn your microphone on, and we'll be excited to take a question.
Hello, Kitimat.
Say hi. Okay, so Dominic, what's your question?
What do you do when you get stuck in the ocean?
What do you do if you get stuck in the ocean?
If we get stuck in the ocean, do you mean if the ship were to break down, we didn't have any engines? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it would be unlikely, first of all. I wonder if you can guess how many engines there are on this ship. Like, if the car that maybe your parents or your friends drive has one engine, how many engines do you think are on this ship?
Matt, how much do you think there is?
20.
20?
20. There aren't 20, but there are 4. There are
4.
4
Oh,
engines.
that was 5. You're so close.
You were close with 5. No, there are 4. So if for us to really be stuck in the ocean, all 4 of those engines would have had to break down. But in that event, because we have everything we need, we have food, we can make our own water, we produce our own electricity on the ship, we'd be safe for a long, long time. And what we would do, we'd get on the radio and we'd call the Canadian Coast Guard. And the Canadian Coast Guard would send a ship and they would tow us into port, or they would send the parts that we need to repair our engine.
the Canadian Coast Guard and the Canadian Navy are out there from coast to coast to coast taking care of people who sometimes get in trouble. But I don't think we'll get in trouble.
All right. Thank you, Kitimat. Great question. Let's continue traveling across Canada, and we'll join our next classroom in Alberta. They are in Calgary. They're a grade 2 classroom with Miss Huddy. Let me turn your microphone on. And actually, I think you might have to type the questions today because I think your microphone is acting up a little, but we'll test and see if your microphone's working.
Can you hear us from here?
Yeah, if they come right up, I think we can hear you.
We brought a microphone there. Who's on board?
Can you try that one more time, nice and close to the mic? It's still a little quiet.
We'll be on the ship for the whole time.
So Scott, they're wondering if you'll be on the ship for the whole time.
Oh, thank you. I didn't hear that question. I will be on the ship for almost the whole time. We've divided these 150 days up into 15 legs. And if you divide 150 by 15, you'll know that each leg is about 10 days long. And I'm currently scheduled to be aboard for 13 of 15 legs. So all of them except 2, and maybe I'll go home to see friends and family.
All right. Well, it sounds pretty incredible. I'm pretty jealous. That's going to be an amazing journey that you're going to undertake with such a beautiful looking vessel. So you're pretty darn lucky.
I bet I am. I feel it.
All right. Let's jump to Manitoba now. So we have Miss Young's class joining us in Manitoba. There we go. They're a grade 5 classroom in Emerson. So let me just check. Mrs. Young, if you don't mind turning on the mic for me, it's just off my screen. I can't reach the button.
Hi, good morning or afternoon.
Hello, Emerson.
We have grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8 students here. We have kids from all the classes in our school.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Okay, here's our first question.
How big is the ship and how many school buses long would that be?
What an awesome question. The ship is 240 feet long, and I do not know how many school buses that would be. I would guess it's about 20 school buses long. 20.
20 school buses long.
20 school buses. What? Okay.
It depends.
Really? You want to ask your question? Okay, you're on.
You guys squeak in another question. That was a quick one.
How cold is the water? Can people swim in it?
Yes, sometimes it's very cold, but even when it's very cold, sometimes we can swim in it. Sometimes when we're in the high north and the water even has ice in it, we'll jump in and we'll swim for about 10 seconds and then we'll get out and warm up very quickly.
10 seconds.
But when we start, because remember, we're starting in Toronto and we'll be going through the St. Lawrence River, the water will be quite warm there. And then it'll get colder as we get into the ocean, and as we get further north, it'll get colder. And on the west coast, the water's quite cold too. But if I was you, I would always swim at least for a little bit in cold water just because it's so exhilarating and fun.
Can you take?
We'll swing back. We're going to swing back to the classrooms, but I want to make sure we get everybody in and we're able to visit each of our groups. So I'm just going to take a quick peek online. And I see some questions online. So, oh, here we go. Here's a neat question. Will local citizens have an opportunity to tour the ship while it's in port?
They will. They will. We really want to make Canada C3 hospitable for the communities that we visit. And especially in the north and more remote places where there may be fewer opportunities to see ships like this, to see some of the things that we're doing. We really want to be as welcoming as we possibly can be. So we're figuring out how we'll be able to get everybody aboard and give them tours and make them feel at home and make them feel, at least for a short while, a little part of the crew. Hey, Joe,
Yeah.
I think I saw the ship's captain just arrive. Shall we say hello to the ship's captain?
Absolutely.
Captain Guy. Everybody, This is Captain Stefan Guy. He's our... Hello, everybody.
I'm going to turn the microphones on so the classrooms can say hi. Here we go. I'm going to turn them on. Go ahead and say hi, guys.
Oh, that's a very enthusiastic crowd. Very enthusiastic crowd. That will help making the passage across the Northwest.
Yeah. What do you guys can probably guess what Captain Guy's job is. It's to be the senior most guy driving this ship and keeping us all safe and getting us from Toronto to Victoria safely and soundly and on time. It's a big job. It's a really, really, really big responsibility.
Absolutely. While we have you here, let's get a quick question. Let's see if a classroom has a question for the captain. So let me visit.
Yes, of course.
Let me visit our next classroom really quickly. I see people online saying thank you or hi to the captain, but let's see if we can get someone online. So Mrs. Mask's class, they're joining us from Barrie. They're a grade 6 class. You've got the captain. Can you turn your mic on? And if you guys have a question, fire away. It could be for Scott too, but if it's for the captain, that'd be cool as well.
Are you in charge? Oh, okay.
You can go down at like, there we go. They can't see you. Bend down, see the camera.
Okay.
There you go. Sorry.
Are you in charge of everyone on board?
Say it a little louder.
If I'm in charge of everyone,
If you're in charge of everyone on board.
yes, I will be. More specifically, I will be driving the ship's crew with their specific duties, but the safety of everybody on board will be my first duty, actually. Yes.
How many people are also on the ship, including the crew?
We will be 60, no more than 60. The ship has been specifically designed to receive fairly comfortably 60 people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Great questions, guys. Thank you so much, Barry. Let's visit another classroom. Let's see. Who haven't we visited yet? Here we go. Mrs. Nawegabo, her class is in Valcarran in Canada. And I'll turn your microphone on. Go ahead with your question.
What was your favorite part of your trip so far?
Oh, favorite part of our trip so far.
Well, Lunenburg is.
Yeah, I've been, because we're in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, and we've been in Nova Scotia for about 2 months on board the ship, making it ready for all those science projects that I described to you. So I've loved Lunenburg. It's a wonderful, very warm and welcoming and hospitable town. And of course, it's the only place we've been so far. So far, Lunenburg is my favorite place.
So you're getting close, though. I imagine it's pretty busy. When do you strike out for Toronto to get things started?
We'll leave here this coming Sunday, May 14th.
Wow, how you feeling? A little pressure? Is everything under control? What's going on?
Lots of pressure.
Both of those things. We feel a lot of pressure, and it is all under control. We'll get there, but there is lots to be done.
All right, excellent. Well, we haven't visited Mrs. Smith's class yet. I'm going to turn your microphone on. Let me see here. Miss Smith. There we go. Microphone's on. And they're joining us in Kitchener, grade 4-5 classroom. Go ahead with a question. Miss Smith, you might just want to hit the mic for me. It's on my end, but it might have been hit on your end as well. If you want to try and flick it on for me.
All right. Okay. Other than that, it's Canada's 150th birthday. Why are you guys going on this exploration?
Well, you know, this expedition is being run by an organization called Students on Ice. And that organization has for 15 years been taking young people, to the Canadian Arctic, to the high north, and also to the Antarctic, the very, very, very distant south, around the South Pole. So Students on Ice really believes that by helping people experience these remote regions, we can learn a lot about the planet, we can learn a lot about the importance of saving the planet. We can learn a lot about the cultures that live in these remote northern regions and about the challenges they face. So Students on Ice has always thought that running expeditions like this is a good way to learn about the world and to figure out how we can help make the world a better place. And all of that is true of this mission too. Even if it weren't Canada's 150th, this would be a wonderful voyage to celebrate these themes and to explore Canada and to help figure out how we each in our own way can help make Canada a better place and how we can help make the world a better place.
Awesome. Great question and a great answer. So you have a grade 5-6 class watching online, Mrs. Nielsen's group. And so we know now that you've been preparing for 2 months, but can you tell us a few more things you've had to do to get this ship ready for departure?
Well, Captain, why don't you describe the things that you do from the ship's perspective?
Yeah. One of my duties was to make a passage plan or a voyage plan. As you probably understand, this is a very, very, very long voyage. So we need food for a voyage. We need water for a voyage. We need fuel for our voyage. Those are all parts of the things we need to plan way ahead. And also there will be people who needs to come to the ship and leave the ship. So we need to coordinate where we're going to do such things. And the most important is planning our own voyage through the ice. You know that Northwest Passage is not an easy passage. It's a passage that was taken by just a few ships over the past few years, 100 years. And we are going to make another one. And this requires a lot of work to make sure we're going to make it.
All right. Well, Captain, while we still have you joining us, I have a question for you. Kind of a little bit of a silly question, but let's say on this 150-day voyage that love strikes. Are you able to marry somebody with your captain powers?
Joe, we have a very strict code of conduct on this voyage, and love is not allowed to strike.
All right, fair enough. But it would be within your powers in theory to do something like that.
Would it be?
Yes, yes. It would be, yes.
All right, very cool. Well, I have on my end, I have a couple students. They're just going to stand off camera, but they have a question. So it's grade 6. Come on over here and go ahead and ask your question. Nice and loud.
So, you know how they said like they had like a supplies of food?
Mm-hmm.
Do they carry that supplies in the boat? Like, do they have enough like food supplies to keep everyone like living there?
Oh,
during
okay.
the days on the trip?
Good question.
Showers.
Good question. So we will be putting as much food aboard the boat when we leave here as we possibly can, but that won't be enough. So we will put on the ship a lot of dry goods, like a lot of grain and a lot of pasta and flour and sugar. But all of the fresh things that we need, we'll run out of. All the vegetables, all the fruit, all the meat. So at the beginning and end of every leg of our 15 legs, we will take aboard some more fresh food.
All right, and one more grade 6 with a quick question. Just read it from there. Go ahead.
Will you see any sea creatures?
Wondering about the marine life you might see on the journey.
Oh, well, we will, and we hope to. We will see whales and seabirds. We will see many fish, of course. We will see puffins probably. We'll see walruses and narwhal. We will
maybe polar bears.
Maybe polar bears, almost certainly. We hope to see polar bears. And you know what narwhals are? They're that fascinating whale, like a smaller whale with one big tusk. Some people call it the unicorn of the sea. It's a long, like a spear coming off its nose. Fascinating and beautiful animal.
All right. Well, what we'll do now, I've seen our viewership's climbed a little bit more. We still have a few minutes. Feel free to let us know where you're watching from and send in questions via the YouTube chat sidebar. What I'll do now is I know there's some questions in some of the other classrooms across Canada joining us. So if you send a representative up to the microphone, I'll try and pick a few more classrooms to get a couple more questions in before we wrap up today. So first come, first serve. There we go. I see Manitoba. You're going to have to turn your mic on for me and then go ahead with your question. Oh, try again. You must have turned it off.
Can you hear us?
Yep.
We can hear you.
Okay. Go for it.
Hi.
You said you're making your own electricity. How are you gonna do that?
We have what we call a generator. Okay, so you might have seen a small generator sometimes to run your own stuff in camping. We have a similar machine. It's just a bigger generator, and it supplies all the electricity we need on the ship. And it runs with the same fuel we run the main engine of the ship.
And I always think it's really interesting that we make our own water. We can take seawater and with a great deal of pressure, a great deal of force, push that seawater through a screen, like your window screen, but the holes in that screen are so small that they only let the little bits of water through and they don't let the little bits of salt through. And so we start with seawater on one side, salty seawater, and fresh water on the other side.
All right, I'm going to hit you with a two-part question. One is from our classroom joining us from Calgary, the grade 2s, and the other came from online. So the first one from the class in Calgary, whoops, question ducked away. There we go. Other than the flag you're painting on the ship, what other symbols of Canada will you have? And then the question from online, they're wondering about the galley. How big and how many cooks?
You know, let me start with the question about the galley. I really had wanted to take you to show you the galley, but unfortunately here in Lunenburg, my cell phone doesn't work very well. And when I go that deep down into the ship, I lose connection. So I wasn't able to show you the galley. But it's a great big kitchen. It's bigger than any kitchen in any house that I've ever lived in. It's like the kitchen for a hotel or a great big restaurant. And we'll always be cooking for 60 people. There'll be 2 cooks working at any one time. And they have already planned every meal for the whole of the 150 days. It takes a lot of work to cook for that many people. They're a very important person aboard this ship, I promise you, the cooks. And you asked about, the first part of that question was about the symbols of Canada. Well, the maple leaf on the flag, of course, but the other things that are important to this voyage about Canada are those things that symbolize reconciliation. So we will have one whole room dedicated to the legacy of residential schools in this country, to the legacy of challenges that have been forced upon Indigenous peoples and the resiliency with which those people are responding to those challenges today. That's one whole room dedicated to that theme. We'll have reading and throughout the ship about environment and sustainability. We'll be talking to leaders and scientists every day about environment and sustainability. So those themes will be symbolized here aboard the ship. And of course, and you heard Joe tell you about one of my favorite things, we'll have maple syrup, and that will be one of the symbols of Canada.
All right, very important. Don't want dry pancakes or waffles, that's for sure. All right, so 2 more questions from online. Then I see Mrs. Smith's class is up at the camera again, so we'll get them next. But we got a group in Montreal watching, and or someone in Montreal watching, and they're wondering about any collaborations, any collaboration with the folks behind the SIKU project. Does that sound familiar?
I'm not familiar with SIKU. That's not to say we don't have a collaboration. That could very well be something that is happening, but is not part of my responsibilities. What is SIKU?
Hopefully they'll punch it in for us. They just told us they're from Montreal, but I do know of one really cool collaboration that you guys have with the Fisheye Project. They're a group that I've worked with before, and they'll be doing some really cool dives from in the Arctic. Live streaming them, so that's going to be pretty incredible. I can't wait for those as a diver myself.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to that too.
And there's another group watching in Somers Sound, Ontario, and they're wondering where the garbage is going to go, the garbage you generate on board.
Great question. It's one that we have a kind of a two-part answer for. The ship, generally when the ship is at sea for a long period of time, it can't, there's not enough space for it to carry all of its garbage in time for it to bring it to a city back down south for it to be handled in the city. So there is on the ship an incinerator that safely and within the controls that are given to us by government burns all of that waste. But we're working right now on how, when we're in the south, we'll be able to collect recycling, because we'll still be visiting cities. So we're trying to figure out how aboard the ship we can collect our recycling and make sure that recycling gets to the recycling facilities of the cities that we visit, so that until we really need to, until we're a long way away from big cities, we won't have to burn that recyclable product.
All right, so I see two more questions, so maybe we'll do two more before we wrap up. We'll start with, I can see Mrs. Mask and Barry. There's someone up at the camera, and we'll wrap up with Mrs. Smith and her classroom. So Mrs. Mask, if you can hit the mic.
Are you going to be collecting or measuring use of plastic
In the ocean.
in the oceans?
I think the answer is no. We have a science program that is focused on collecting samples, benthic samples, meaning bottom samples, plankton samples. There may be some hydrographic work done. There will be some seabird observations. There will be some DNA sampling of the oceans. But as far as I know, and I could be wrong, Dr. Mark Graham at the Canadian Museum of Nature. The Museum of Nature is a really significant partner for us, and Dr. Mark Graham is our chief scientist. He would know, and I will ask him that very question about the study, because as you know, obviously, having asked the question, plastics in our oceans is a really significant problem for the oceans and for all of us.
Awesome.
All right, thank you so much for the question, and we'll give final shot to Miss Smith's classroom. If you guys want to turn, I've turned your volume up, just make sure your mic's turned on for me.
Go ahead. What inspired you to do this?
Well, you know, there are two ways for me to answer that question. The mission, the voyage, the Canada C3 project wasn't my vision. It's the vision of a fellow named Jeff Green, who's a good friend to both Stefan and me, and who is the founder behind Students on Ice, and a very visionary guy. And it was Jeff that thought that a really, really important way to celebrate Canada's 150th would be, as I've described to you, to take advantage of a ship, to celebrate the coastlines, to remind Canadians that there are 3 coastlines and not just 2 coastlines. Some people, by the way, think of the Great Lakes as a 4th coastline, but also to use the voyage and the opportunity to gain this really unique perspective from a ship on those 4 themes that I also mentioned to you: youth, environment, reconciliation, and cultural diversity. So the vision and inspiration for the whole voyage came from Jeff and Students on Ice. My own personal inspiration, and perhaps Stefan's, is you know, an agreement with Jeff's description of the opportunity with all of this, and the truth is that I love being at sea, and I love the opportunity to explore and to meet people and visit these places, and to do it in the context of Canada's 150th. This is just a really, really wonderful opportunity.
This absolutely is an absolutely incredible project. It's been a blast so far sharing a couple of hangouts, and I absolutely can't wait till you guys are underway and being able to share some of the adventures from the ship with classrooms. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. Good luck with the prep for the rest of this week.
Thank you.
Before you strike off, I want to thank all of our classrooms, incredible classrooms watching from across Canada, both on YouTube as well as live. So we had a nice little tour of Canada via classroom, so that was pretty cool. And maybe just one more question to wrap things up. Both of you have lots of experience out on the ocean. you know, exploring on different vessels, is there anything about the ocean that still surprises you?
Yes, it's an unpredictable area. I mean, one day is a nice day, the other day could be a tougher day. Okay, but lots of diversity, and probably it reflects the challenge of this full passage from one coast to another to another. Okay, it unites people, it shows the diversity of people, and working at sea, it's all about diversity of it, every day being at sea. It's a challenging voyage. It surprises me on every trip, and I've been sailing for 35 years, close to 35, and this trip brings me not concerns, but I need to get prepared to face it. I know there will be surprise.
All right. Well, again, guys, thank you so much. We'll let you get back to the planning and maybe enjoying a little bit of the beautiful day it looks like you have there. I'm going to turn the microphones on in a sec, let the classroom say goodbye and thank you. But from myself and my class joining me, thank you. And we're excited to follow along. So here come the microphones. All right, classroom, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye, guys.
Goodbye, and thank you, everybody. We're signing off for today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.